Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday's reading of the Book of Ordinary Oracles. If you recall from the earlier chapter called The Seven Secrets of Fortune Telling, one of the seven secrets is oracles work because they're perfect. And there are very few things in the manifested universe that are more perfect than a cube. Just a simple cube. The Kabbalists say in so many words that if you would stick the primal singularity under a microscope, you'd see a white cubic stone. That's the ultimate structure of manifestation. And that cubic stone is this idea of perfection. And it's that little white dot in the very center of the small rose in the big rose cross diagram. That's what's inside that little white dot. And what's so perfect about it is when we meditate on what it takes to make a cube, it takes three dimensions. It takes a center and an up and a down and a right and a left and a front, forward and back. Just like that. So that creates the floor and ceiling and the four walls around it. And it takes three things to do that. Three things to create duality or opposites. And that very black thing in the very center where all of those meet, that's the inscrutable black center. That's the sphere of Saturn, if you will. And so it takes those three, like the three mother letters of the Hebrew alphabet, which you see on there, and that inscrutable center, and then that creates the six sides and top of a box, like that. So it takes three of those things, and if we look at a regular die, those six sides, the opposite of each side, when you add them together, will add to 7. So 3 creates 7. Dice are really, really cosmically cool. And that's what we're going to talk about today in the Book of Ordinary Oracles, which I'm sure you've ordered by now because you just can't help yourself. Got to have this for Christmas. Chapter 5, Dice. Two little epigrams, one from Albert Einstein and one from Stephen Hawking. Einstein said, "God does not play dice." Stephen Hawking says, "Yes, he does." Since an exasperated Albert Einstein made that famous statement about God not playing dice, physicists have gone back and forth about the apparent randomness of nature. For reasons I certainly don't pretend to understand, the crux of one such debate revolves around the theoretical impossibility of measuring both the speed and the position of a particle. Einstein figured there must be some factor, some hidden variable that once understood would allow such measurement and thus disprove the randomness of things. As it turned out, the old boy has been proven wrong, at least about that. Professor Stephen Hawking, in one of his surprisingly easy-to-follow public lectures, talks about the result of an experimental test that could prove or disprove hidden variable theories. Here's his quote. When the experiment was carried out carefully, the results were inconsistent with hidden variables. Thus, it seems that even God is bound by the uncertainty principle and cannot know both the position and the speed of a particle. So God does play dice with the universe. All evidence points to him being an inveterate gambler who throws the dice on every possible occasion. Unquote. Dice are perfect tools for generating random numbers. In later chapters of this book, I'll show you how the six-sided die, either alone or in combination with others, can be used to generate the numbers and figures for other oracles. First, however, let's look at a couple ordinary dice oracles. Throwing dice is perhaps the world's oldest, most popular, and universal game of chance. It's also one of the oldest and most revered divinatory methods. Dice made from ordinary things like knuckle bones, bone, ivory, fruit pits, teeth, seashells, broken pottery stones, and sticks have been found in prehistoric graves all over the world. Some of the earliest written records unearthed by archaeologists are rules for various games and auguries that use dice. In a very real way, the biblical oracular practice of casting lots is a throw of the dice. Lots were bits of broken poetry with Hebrew letters or other mystical numbers or symbols painted on them. Many Bible scholars believe that the Urim, which means revelations, and Thummim, which means truth, Thummim, it sounds like something you hear at a bar about 2 in the morning when they try to get you to leave. They go, last call. I'm giving away my sleazy past. Urim and Thummim. Many Bible scholars believe that the Urim and Thummim, whose mysterious objects that were stashed inside the breastplate of the high priest of Israel and used as oracular devices to determine God's will on a particular question. They believed that they were actually forms of dice. I could just hear him say, what does God have to say about that? Excuse me. Scripture is full of craps shooting. As Jesus hung dying on the cross, soldiers threw dice for his expensive seamless cloak. Book 4 of the Hindu Mahabharata is entitled The Fatal Dice. It tells how the virtuous leader, Yudhishthira, lost everything because he just couldn't pass up a good game of dice. The gods of Egypt loved to play dice. One of my favorite myths concerns the famous game of dice that the moon god, Thoth, inventor of numbers and language and time, played with the other gods. This tale has many variations, so if my version is not exactly like the one you've heard, I wouldn't be surprised, but it goes something like this. Ra, the sun god, liked to think that he and Nuit, the goddess of infinite space, had an exclusive relationship. or goddess Nut if you're a purist there. She liked him well enough, but let's face it, the sun is just one star of many. And when you're the goddess whose body plays hostess to all the stars in the night sky, well, let's just say she had a capacity for a whole lot of loving. As sure as night follows day, she became pregnant with 5 babies. There's much confusion in the various myths as to who the father or fathers are. It didn't seem to concern her too much. That is, not until Ra, in a jealous rage, cursed her so that she'd not be able to give birth to those babies in any day of the year. At the time, the year was 360 days long, 12 months of 30 days. This was serious. Nuit was very concerned about how all this eternal swelling was going to affect her figure. She went to Thoth, one of her favorite boy toys. Moonlight is so romantic. And begged him to think of some kind of loophole in the curse that could get her out of this mess. Thoth had an idea. He challenged the rest of the gods to a grand game of dice. Either by skill, cunning, or a little cheating, Thoth eventually beat the house. As his prize, he demanded that he be allowed to add the equivalent of 1/72nd of his annual moonlight to the year, thereby lengthening the calendar by 5 days. Days that would allow Nuit to beat the curse and deliver her 5 divine babies in a new kind of year. Now today, because of the popularity of role-playing games, dice come in all shapes and numbers and sizes. The possibilities for divining with these are mind-boggling. For our purposes, however, we're going to stick with the ordinary 6-sided dice with opposite faces that add to 7. 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 4. After all, most of you probably already have a few of these little fortune tellers laying around the house. Now, this idea that the opposite side of the die will add to 7 is perfectly Kabbalistic and in keeping with the idea that the 7 double letters of the Hebrew alphabet represent the descent of consciousness just as it breaks into the level of consciousness where duality has an existence. Prior to that, those 3 things inside there's no it's above the abyss and there is no duality. There are no opposites. But the creation of the 7 does create the world of duality, which is a step down in consciousness from the singularity, we've got to admit. Gives birth to all that good and evil shit. I have several other reasons for doing this. First, the use of 6-sided die goes back as far as the Etruscans, 900 BC. These evolved from prehistoric divination with animal knuckle or knee bones, some of which can land on any one of 6 positions. Second, and most important, we have inherited an existing and venerable list of throw answers, or traditional meanings attached to different numbers. The throw answers below are my own personal lists of meanings, culled from a number of classic dice divination sources and translated, as I am wont to do, into my own lazy and abbreviated language. One set consists of 11 answers for which you use 2 dice. The second lists 16 answers for which you can use 3 dice. The method of consulting the dice oracle is the same for both. Number 1, throw the dice from a cup into a circular area from 12 to 18 inches in diameter. This can be a piece of paper or cloth, or even a small hooked rug that I regularly use. If you are outside, you can draw a circle on the sidewalk with chalk or mark out a circle in the dirt. 2. After invoking the superior intelligence of your choice, concentrating on your question, take the cup of dice in your left hand if you are right-handed, and your right hand if you are left-handed, and shake it until the spirit moves you to toss the dice into the circle. 3. If the die falls outside the circle, don't read it. If all the dice fall outside the circle, put them back in the cup and roll again. If all the dice fall outside the circle twice in a row, wait at least 3 hours before attempting again. You can also inject an added dimension to your throw of dice by placing a coin or other small object anywhere within the circle before you make your throw. The die that lands nearest the coin represents things or events or people that are coming into your life. The die that lands farthest away from the coin represents things, events, or people that are moving out of your life or will become a factor in your life far in the future. Superstitions surrounding the dice oracle. Have fun getting yourself psyched up to consult an oracle. Half the fun of getting yourself psyched up to consult an oracle is respecting the various traditions, superstitions, and taboos unique to the oracle. After all, you're behaving irrationally, or you wouldn't be consulting an oracle in the first place. Why not go ahead and play along with the mystique and romance of the process and try not to offend the powers that be? 3 big traditional taboos of dice divination are: don't consult the dice on a Wednesday. 2, don't consult the dice on a Monday. That's why we're talking about this on a Tuesday, if you haven't guessed. Don't consult the dice when it is hot and humid. Okay, I've yet to discover an explanation for these simple taboos, but I have a theory or two that make sense, at least to me. They all have to do with that famous dice player of Egyptian mythology, Thoth. The prescription against consulting the dice on Mondays and Wednesdays probably derives from honoring Thoth, the moon god, also the Egyptian version of the Greek Hermes and the Roman Mercury, whose day is Wednesday. Thoth is the god who gambled his moonlight to add extra days to the calendar days that synchronize the calendars of the moon and the sun. Traditionally, the sun calendar started on July 23rd, when the dog star Sirius arose and signaled the inundation of the Nile and the beginning of the hot and humid days of summer that are still known to us today as the dog days. Okay, now that you're feeling all spooky, ask your question and toss them bones. Now I've got a list of 2 dice answers and a list of 3 dice answers. Now there's Well, I'll just describe them right now to you. Use the two die methods when you have a specific question about a specific situation. If it comes up 2, yes. If it comes up 3, no. If it comes up 4, danger, be cautious in this matter. 5, pause and look and think before you leap. 6, you will easily get your way in this situation. 7, your reward will depend on how much effort you put toward your goal. 8, be patient. 9, success in everything you do. 10, disappointment, but keep on trying. 11, impossible. You're asking and expecting too much, at least for the time being. And 12, this is a real long shot. But long shots sometimes pay off. Now, the 3 dice answer. And this comes from Tibet. The Tibetans use a 3 dice system they call shomo. Use this method when you don't have a specific question, but wish to get a general forecast of events that are likely to affect you. So if it comes up 3, it indicates family problems. 4, you really don't understand the situation, better rethink this. 5, a very pleasant surprise. 6, your luck is about to change, unfortunately not for the better. So 6 is, with 3 dice, is not so hot. 7, you want it, you got it. 8, material loss. 9, hassles with friends, co-workers, or lovers. 10, a happy romantic surprise. 11, a new baby. I wonder if that happens after you roll 9. Okay, 10. 11, a new baby or a brainchild or the beginning of an endeavor. 12 is a sad separation, perhaps even ill health. 13, a message of importance, good news. 14, something happens to bum you out. 15, a stranger becomes a friend by helping you. 16, watch your step. Play with fire now and you'll definitely get burned. 17, something you hear causes you to modify your plans. 18, is everybody happy? Yes, this is the best. Happiness, success. Okay, that's the end of the chapter on dice. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about, let's see if I can find one over here. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about dominoes. So before I leave you, I'm going to give you the oracle for today. Some days you just can't make a mistake. We'll see you tomorrow. Continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. 5.